Welcome into Emerald and Lilywhite, episode 41. Got a good victory yesterday to talk about. We don't always get to follow up uh, matches with a victory to talk about here in Emerald and Lilywhite this season, but we certainly have one to talk about today. Spurs come away 3-2 on aggregate, 3-1 on the night against AZ Alkmaar at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. With me, as always, my co-host Max at Going Limbs. Just the two of us today. You can find me at Scott G. Bird, and again, Max at Going Limbs. Max, what's up, man?
Not much. I just got a little joke for you. Just kick off the pod. Why did the chicken cross the road?
To win the Europa League.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, through to get Spurs through to the quarterfinals. So the chickens crossed one road. We need to cross 3 more roads until we win the Europa League. But hey, road 1 is finished.
No doubt.
It wasn't an easy cross. Maybe got nipped in the leg halfway through, but kept fighting and eventually got to the other side.
Yeah, if all things go according to plan and we do fully cross the road, probably a broken wing, and a few missing feathers or whatever. But
Yeah.
Spurs can get there, and we'll say the road is maybe that like mega 8-lane highway in Los Angeles, right? And we're over a couple of the lanes, and we got some ways to go. But honestly, I don't think there's anyone who could definitively say that Spurs were getting through that tie. So we did, and that's the big takeaway. I mean, I think most people were hopeful and did think that it was possible, right? But with the inconsistencies this season, you just never know what you're going to get from Tottenham. And they came out and played pretty well. Obviously, we did concede a goal. Unfortunately, both of their goals in this tie, we really absolutely gifted to them. Obviously, one of them being an own goal itself, and the second one, poor Lucas Bergvall, who I thought was pretty good on the night, not only scored an own goal in the first leg, but assisted really their goal last night as well. But again, a good overall performance from Lucas on the night, I would have to say. Let's jump into the lineup. Speaking of Lucas Bergvall, I think the biggest thing for me, and we're going to get into it in more detail, but Bergvall was, for all intents and purposes, deployed as a 6 in this match, and I think you and I have been calling for that. We've also been calling for Archie Gray to play the 6, right? But that's more
which we saw.
We did see that as
10
well.
10 minutes.
100%. Yeah, it was good to see. But I really think the future of the 6 position are probably those two guys at this point. And I'll be curious to see what we do this offseason, right? But Bergvall gets a start at the 6. We saw James Maddison in an interview post-match, which Robbie shared in our group chat today. Shout out to Robbie for that. Maddison was very complimentary of Bergvall in general, but Bergvall is a number 6 as well. So, again, going to be interesting to see what happens there. And if you have a Lucas Bergvall and an Archie Gray competing for a 6 position, both can probably play the 8 as well. I think that bodes very well for the organization in general. But, yeah, let's look at the lineup here. Vicario starts in goal. I think that's obvious and written in the stars at this point. Porro, Romero, Van de Ven, and Spence. You and I have both predicted Porro would start at right back. I was surprised to see Udogie not start personally, just because he didn't play at all at the weekend, right? I think he played for 10 minutes, if I'm not mistaken, against Bournemouth. And then the return of Romero and Van de Ven. Let's pause on the back line, man. What did you make of those 4?
Yeah, this was kind of the back line that I wanted just because of Porro's crossing. But like Romero and Van de Ven return can't be understated at all. We just looked so much better back there, and then it's not a coincidence that the second Van de Ven gets subbed off, we concede a goal. Where Gray has to like track back on a guy that Van de Ven would have surely won the ball there, and we wouldn't have even had that scenario. But I thought Christian Romero was incredible. His passing was just unbelievable yesterday, and it's literally like our buildup is single-handedly carried by Christian Romero. Like when we don't have Kulusevski, like we talked about with his like carrying ability. I mean, Lucas Bergvall has it a bit, but Bergvall didn't even need to do that because Romero's skipping passes into Dom. Like that was how we we're getting all our chances. Romero skips a pass all the way up into Dom or Sonny. They drop it back to Matters, and then Matters like switches it or plays Sonny out wide, and then Spence overlap or Sonny cuts in. Like, that's literally how we scored. We scored a goal off a Spence cross of the overlap, or Sonny rejects the overlap, finds Matters top of the box, we score. It was all starting from Romero passes and then build up like Sonny, Matters, Romero. I thought were really like the engine for our attack yesterday, and it was the most fluid attack we've seen in a long time from Spurs.
Yeah, and I think I agree with everything you're saying. And with Romero and Van de Ven, it's not only their ability and their on-field play, but it's just the confidence that the rest of the team has when you look behind you, and it's Van de Ven and Romero. And no disrespect to Gray or Davies or Danzo or Dragoshin, right? But they're not going to inspire the same amount of confidence in the six guys in front of them that those two would. And so just a huge mental boost when those two are in the lineup, and long may it continue. I think Van de Ven, his minutes were probably managed when he was taken off at 60 minutes. I personally was. I didn't love that.
Stupid, dude. Like, I'm sorry. Like,
agreed.
You're not managing minutes up one goal in a knockout game. Like,
exactly.
You just play him the full 90. Like, I just don't get it. And Gray wasn't good. Like, it felt like it's just unnatural for a center back to come on at the 60-minute mark and like be like the sole center back. Like, people add center backs all the time, but like taking like a 1-for-1 swap, like that's pretty rare. And I thought it put a lot of pressure on Gray. And I thought Gray played honestly his worst game of the season. He was like grossly out of position for a lot of it. And like, this is coming from a podcast that loves Archie Gray since the beginning. I think our second episode or third episode ever is like Archie Gray is the GOAT, or I forget what the title. I forget what the title was, but we have been the Archie Gray guys. But I don't think he was very good yesterday. And then he got into the middle, and I think that was a lot more comfortable for him. And honestly, just straight up, I'd prefer if you were going to do that swap, just bring on Davies. Like, he's more no nonsense, just like he knows what to do, calm veteran presence. I think Ange kind of learned from that, and pushing Gray back up to the midfield. So
I agree. And it's interesting. I mean, like you said, managing minutes when you're up one goal in a knockout is silly at best, in my opinion. I did not like it. I made the comment in another group chat, if we don't win this match, they can manage his minutes for the rest of the season if they want to. It doesn't matter, right, at that point. And so it was just a very strange time to manage minutes. And minutes could have been managed probably against Chelsea when he came on when he didn't need to and got re-injured, or potentially against Elfsberg when he came on and didn't need to and got re-injured, right? So just very strange decision-making. And of course you want to get Van de Ven on the pitch. But the good news is Van de Ven did come out and say he's fine. No re-aggravation of anything. It was simply just managing minutes, and he's good to go. So I would expect him to get a full 90, in the next phase of the Europa League. Him and Romero both. I think if all goes according to plan when we play Frankfurt, which we'll talk about, I would think that those two play 90 minutes for the remaining matches of the Europa League.
Absolutely.
That would be my estimation, and I'm sure the estimation of pretty much all Spurs fans. Let's talk about the midfield. Bergvall, Sarr, Madison. My first instinct or my first reaction to seeing that was no Basuma. Wonderful news. What did you make of the performance from those three?
Yeah, I thought Bergvall was incredible. Just so calm on the ball, was willing to take on his man, switch the play, which is something we have missed, switching the play from our six. I was initially pretty excited because of the no Basuma. Like, I would have liked to see Gray and Bergvall because Sarr just played 90, but shout out to Sarr. He was pretty good. I mean, he was I think it's fair to say he was probably like our most anonymous player on the field, but that's not to say he was bad. He was doing his job, cleaning up messes, putting out fires, as he does, making some forward runs, like some decoy runs, kind of drawing the defense. he's not doing anything that's like, I guess, like filling up the stat sheet, although there's not much of that in soccer. But in basketball, like he's not filling up the stat sheet, but he's doing the little things that don't show up in the box score. So shout out to him, like 2 full 90s in the past week, and he's participating in Ramadan. So no water, no food during any of these. I guess I don't know. With the time difference there, maybe he did get food before this later kickoff. But hey,
Yeah.
regardless, during Ramadan, putting in these shifts, shout out to Sar. He's been big. He's really stepped up, and he's been called on to step up due to injuries, and he hasn't gotten that many opportunities this year, or not as many as he had before, and he's really come through when he has. So shout out to him. And then James Madison, man of the match for me. Like he pulled every string, everything that you and Shang were asking him to do on last week's podcast. He showed up and did it. And I'm happy because I kind of felt last week that I was the one fighting for Madison, and he proved me right, man. So shout out to him. He was absolutely incredible. Bagged a goal, created the third goal as well with a disgusting shoulder drop that any midfielder just loves to see. And dude, he was incredible yet again, and I'm gonna keep saying it. Actually, I don't know, because Romero's back to his best, it seems. But I'm gonna keep saying Madison's our best player, but Romero's definitely up there. It might be him, but those two were really, really, really good yesterday.
Yeah, agreed. It was wonderful to see Madison kind of take that leadership role that, as you said, Chang and I were asking him to take on the last pod. Just need those guys to step up and carry the torch in these big matches, and he certainly did that. Speaking of those types of players, Son gets a start as well up top, paired with Solanke and Odebear. Obviously, Odebear has a fantastic match. We're going to come on to that. But I'm curious, what did you make of Son's performance yesterday?
I saw a lot of people criticizing it. I thought he was good. He was involved in every goal, every buildup. He had a couple skill moves taken on his man that were pretty disgusting.
Yeah.
He didn't end up getting a goal, but he got an assist and was definitely involved in Odebear's first goal, where he pressed and won the ball and it ricocheted to Solanke, and Odebear's second goal, where he overlapped Spence. Spence found him, and then Spence return overlap found him. Great decision making there. So I think Son played a part in all 3 goals, and I thought he was really good. So I don't really understand the criticism there. And there you go, dude. That's Son, Madison, Romero, the leadership group all stepping up in this match, and that's exactly what you want to see if you're Ange and if you're a fan of the team.
Yeah, Ange was super happy with Sonny after Odebear's first goal. He called him out. Camera pans to Ange. He was shouting, Sonny, good work. All about that press, and also got to shout out Solanke for the patience and the decision making in that moment.
Incredible.
I think there's 8 out of 10 strikers would have just taken a hit when they saw that the keeper was somewhat ill positioned, right? But he was patient, calm, took his time, found Odebear with a great ball.
And trusted Odebear to finish that. I, for one, did not in that moment. I was like, Dom, we got to be shooting that. But then initially, it looked like he skied it. And then, boom, into the top bin. So shout out Odebear. I know we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves. Let's focus on Solanke. 2 assists.
Mm-hmm.
That one, like you said, decision-making absolutely incredible, especially from a striker there. And then the second assist is just disgusting. I know he was probably shooting it either way. To get that back heel flick into that position is just absurd technique from Dom Solanke. So shout out to him. He's done that before. It's kind of his thing a little bit, but Odebear wide open at the back post to finish that. Solanke creating, holding up. Like I said before, so many of those is one touch from Solanke back to Matters, and then boom, out to Son, out to Odebear. And that's how we were breaking. And this is coming from a guy who's not getting shit created for him, and he's a striker, but he's finding other ways to impact the game. And this is what we saw from Harry Kane. Just finding a way to make your mark on the game. aside from whether you're getting clear-cut chances, because I can't remember the last time we created a good chance for Dom Solanke.
Same.
So he's still contributing, still getting assists and linking up play incredibly, and that's why he's been one of our best players this season. And I can't recall like a bad word on this podcast that's been said about Solanke by us, because just every game he might be our most consistent player, consistent 8 out of 10 performances by Dom, which is
I think
awesome.
he's the signing of the season in my opinion.
Bergvall though,
I think Bergvall is close, but I think Solanke I think Bergvall has been a little bit like a roller coaster throughout the season, or Dom, as you said, has just been a nice steady heartbeat or whatever. So, but shout out to Bergvall team. Nothing to take anything away from him when I say that, but Dom's performance yesterday was fantastic. The selflessness that we see from him, as you said, not getting many opportunities created for him. Strikers, I'm one of them. We're selfish by nature, right? We want the glory. Obviously, I'm not a Premier League striker, but I guarantee you I would have hit that. There's not a chance in the world that I would have looked at anyone else in that moment. I would have been taking a rip there and probably wouldn't have scored and gotten an earful from my teammates and would have told them something like, yeah, not my problem, be better or something like that, right? But just wonderful selfless play from Dom Solanke in that moment. And couldn't be happier for the big guy. I think he's got a really bright future over the next 2 or 3 seasons at Spurs, especially if that's under Ange Postecoglou. I think Ange's system is one that's going to, it's going to rely on a striker to be selfless and to create opportunities for others. And I think we said that from the jump on this show, right? That the Ange system very much requires a striker to be maybe not the one on the end of opportunities more so than those around him. And I think Dom plays that role really well. And let's finish with Odegaard, last but not least. His breakout performance, if we will, right?
Yeah.
For a winger to come out with 2 goals, coming off that injury, at a time where many people were probably questioning Wilson Odegaard and his abilities, right? Just a huge performance from him.
Yeah, I literally said on the last podcast, he's probably the last winger I want to see starting on that side. He got the start and he came through. I thought he was super dynamic outside of his goals, making good runs, better than we've seen him in recent weeks. So hand up, I was wrong about Odegaard, and he really just came in with an absolute monster performance, just in the right places to finish those goals. Those are Brennan Johnson goals, like the most textbook Brennan Johnson goals you'll see.
Yep.
I don't know how that bodes for Brennan Johnson if Odegaard can do his job by finishing those chances and also takes on his man and tries to create for others. So we'll see. That's an interesting dynamic. But the end product was the thing I'm most concerned about with Odegaard, and he delivered today. And like Brennan finishes those, and apparently Odegaard does as well. So that was the one thing I would be worried about, is him finishing his chances. But he gets his debut goal for the club and then adds another one to send us through to the quarterfinals. So what a game from Wilson Odegaard. A brace for him. I saw a lot of people calling for Odegaard man of the match. Personally, I think it's Maddison because of how much he created for others. But I'm fine with Odegaard man of the match because he did do things outside of the goals that were really quality as well. But yeah, shout out to him. Played a lot of minutes in this game as well. I think like almost 80 minutes from Wilson. Yeah. So impressive. Yeah. Give that man a rest at the weekend. Can't have him getting injured. If he's going to keep up this form, keep up this confidence, he's going to be a big part of our run down the stretch here.
Yeah, well said. I think it's hard to not give someone who scores 2 goals man of the match, but I think Maddison's a good shout as well. Also back to Solanke for a second, that flick on for Odegaard's second goal was just really, really good composure from Dom too. And I think, I bring that up to say Wilson will benefit tremendously from continuing to play alongside Dom Solanke and Youngmin Son. I think that's probably going to end up being what gravitates into our preferred front three for the rest of the season. I can only imagine with Son on the left.
Well,
And
that's interesting because like if that's the preferred front three, and Kulu's coming back, and you're not dropping Madison. Like I know Ange is the fucking guy that would drop Madison and piss me off, but you can't drop him right now. I feel like so then it just gets interesting.
I've been saying for weeks, Ange's biggest challenge is figuring out how to get both of those two on the pitch at the same time. I don't think Kulu at right wing is terribly effective for this team. He's certainly better in the middle of the park, and Ange has to figure out how to get those two on the pitch at the same time. If you can figure out a way to get a Bergvall, Kulusevski, Madison midfield to work, that is Ange's assignment, in my opinion. If he can figure that out, we'll be humming. But I think Odegaard is much more effective, even before the goals, than Kulusevski has been. And then obviously Son's going to continue to play on the left. We're going to talk about Fulham, but speaking of Son and Odegaard and all of that, I personally feel that with the international break coming up, I believe after the Fulham match, if I'm not mistaken, right? It's Fulham and then we go on break.
Yeah.
Son will be called up to South Korea. There's no way he won't be, right? If he hasn't already been, I would probably just tell Sonny he's not even going to be involved at all against Fulham. And if he wants to take off and get ready to meet up with the national team, then so be it, right? I'd give him a rest.
Absolutely. Do you want me to go through the guys? Because
that'd be great.
A lot of our guys, Odegaard, French U21 call up.
Yep.
For this break. Tell French U21 call up as well.
Yep.
Sweden, I don't know if they've announced their squad, but like Lucas Bergvall's in it if they're playing.
Yeah, he'll be there. Yeah.
And then Solanke, England, that's the big one. Shout out to Big Dom. And then Sonny, like you said, Romero, Van de Ven, we've covered. Spence misses out. That sucks. But Porro, Udogi, both getting calls. Vicario getting a call. And then Mikey Moore getting a call for England U20s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And then I don't know what Wales is doing, but if they're playing, then Johnson and Davies are also getting calls.
Yep.
So that's like our entire team. So I definitely prioritize trying to maybe just play the guys who are not going to be playing international football when we're playing Fulham this weekend.
100%. But Son's a big one for me. I mean, we've seen him injured over international breaks before, and the last thing we need is him flying out Sunday night on tired legs after a tough match at Craven Cottage. I would just, again, give him the day off and tell him to head out to South Korea if that's what he'd prefer to do, or wherever he goes to meet up with the squad. I'm not sure where they're playing, right? But, I mean, I personally think Fulham is a wonderful opportunity to try Tell on the left. I think it's the more we hear about the future for Tell, it sounds like he's kind of the heir apparent to Sonny potentially at this point, right? And
you think like Tell on the left as opposed to striker? Because Dom, I would just do the same. Like he's gonna play for England, and those games, I don't know, they might be a little bit more intense than like France U21 matches. So I might just throw Tell in the middle and then give Moore a shot maybe on the left, or like I could see Tell on the left and Scarlett through the middle. I think Solanke's Son, like at this point in the season, we've talked about prioritizing the cups. Like, please, like we need these guys not to get hurt. So,
dude, I do not care what happens on Sunday.
Neither do I. This is the game I've cared the least about this entire season.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, I want to win, but yeah, it's a wonderful opportunity to give guys who haven't got a ton of minutes a shot. It's in London, right? Opportunity for friends and family to be there if they're somewhat local, right? So yeah, just I don't know, give guys a rest for sure. Rounding out the 11 from Alkmaar before we move on, Basuma comes on for Madison, Johnson comes on for Odegaard, Gray for Van de Ven, as we've talked about, and then briefly Davies for Bergvall to kind of see out and staple it out right there at the end. I actually thought Basuma was pretty good when he came on.
Made a fantastic block.
Huge block. I think I was thinking about this morning. I think there's a world for Basuma where his main role is to see out matches. You don't need to be involved in ball progression, nothing fancy. His defensive acumen and positional awareness is pretty solid, and I think it always has been, right, from a defensive perspective. So come on, see out matches, especially throughout this Europa League run. Potentially we see Basuma play 4 or 5 more times, again, seeing matches out, and then probably moves on this summer, right? But I think he offers value for the rest of the season in that role that we saw yesterday. Again, simple, defend, keep a lead, chuck the ball into Rosie if you need to, right? Just make sure we see this lead out. I think he did well there. Johnson, he was okay. I had nothing terribly special, right? But he came on and offered fresh legs against a tired opponent late in the match. We talked about Gray pretty extensively, right? Maybe not his best cameo. Looked better in the 6 than he did at center back. And then, as you mentioned, Davies comes on and
gentle Ben.
Yeah, just offers that veteran leadership, guides the team through the rest of the match. I think did a really good job there. And the thing that maybe is easy to forget about with Ben Davies is, like, even a guy like Mickey Van de Ven is going to look up to Ben Davies, right? Someone who's been at the club for 11, 12 years potentially now. I think 11 years. Had the thing about Ben Davies too, how many managers has it been? Pochettino, Ryan Mason, Antonio Conte,
Mourinho,
Jose Mourinho,
Nuno
Espirito Santo,
Ange,
even
Stellini.
Yeah, exactly. So you've got 7 managers who have all called on Ben Davies, right? That is unprecedented. Very few players would survive that type of turnover. He's him and Sonny are like the only guys on the squad who have survived that turnover from a managerial perspective.
And I don't even know, like, him and Sonny came the same season.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know who is in 3rd place there. Like, is it Romero? Like, I it feels like no one has been here that long aside from those two.
No, it's got to be just those two. Yeah, so credit to both of them, and especially Ben Davies, who obviously doesn't get his name in lights like a Heung-min Son does. So shout out to Ben Davies, who came on for Bergvall again to see it out. But yeah, exciting performance. Obviously, Spurs win again 3-2 on aggregate, 3-1 on the night to see themselves through. Spurs will now face Frankfurt in the quarterfinals of the Europa League. We have learned Frankfurt does get through Ajax. We'll talk about Frankfurt briefly. I don't think either of us are going to pretend to be experts on the Bundesliga and Frankfurt this season, right? But I do know that they are somewhat somewhat wounded, we could say, with the loss of Omar Mamouche to Man City in January. Yeah. Still relying heavily on Ugo Ekitike, I believe is the correct pronunciation of.
He got a French U21 cop, so he'll be playing
good for him.
Wilson and Matisse.
Good. So maybe they'll have some familiarity with what I think Ekitike will be their main threat. I believe Frankfurt, it will primarily play on the front foot. They do play a 2-striker system, which is something that you don't see a ton of these days anymore, right? So I think a little bit of a defensive adjustment there will be required. But again, with Romero and Van de Ven both back, presumably, I expect us to be able to keep him quiet. But what are your prospects going into this quarterfinal?
Yeah, so I kind of think that we have a good shot. Marmouche, like, he was their best player by a mile. He still leads the team by 10 goals, and he hasn't played a game for them in 2 months. 10 goals and assists, that is. And he hasn't played a game for them in 2 months at this point. So that's kind of insane. They've been in essentially like a free fall since he's left, at least in the Bundesliga. They've kind of kept it up in the Europa League. So I don't know what the rotation looks like there. But I said in the group chat, like, we always play German teams pretty well. I don't know what it is. Son, especially, he's talked about it, racism that he faced in Germany. He always loved scoring. He kind of pieced up Hoffenheim earlier this year. I remember playing Frankfurt in the Champions League a couple years ago, got through them pretty handily. I remember playing Dortmund in the Champions League 2019. Was that 2019 round of 16?
Yep.
We fucked them, and that was some beautiful footy. So yeah, dude, we have a good history against German teams paired with Marmouche's departure. I I know Frankfurt's going to go hard for the Europa League. They have some pedigree. They were in the final. They won, right?
They won the Europa League 2 years ago, 3 years ago.
3 years ago.
3 years ago.
But I kind of like our chances. We need to jump out to a lead first leg, though. That's going to be the key. First leg is at White Hart Lane, and we need to capitalize, go in with a multi-goal lead back to Germany, and then just see that shit out. That's the plan, and I feel a bit more confident today than I did yesterday. In terms of playing Frankfurt.
Yeah, that's fair. I think they're a better side than Ajax, so I would have preferred to get Ajax in this round. Frankfurt, Kevin Trapp is their keeper, German international.
He's hurt.
Obviously. Oh, is he? Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that would bode well for us. Arthur Dieter, I think, is a great center back. He's young. He gets really good in Football Manager, which is kind of where I base all my opinions off of. Right, he becomes world class. Robert Koch, another center back who's pretty tidy. And I'm just going through their lineup here. We've already talked about Ekateke. They've got Lilywhite, who unfortunately not a huge fan of off the field after it came out that he was just kind of like homophobic and was hazing teammates in a homophobic fashion, but he's a good player. So we'll have to keep him quiet. Mo Dahoud is pretty solid. Mohamed Dahoud. They've also got, which I didn't realize this, Mario Götze and Michi Batshuayi, right? Michi Batshuayi, who are both pretty solid veterans. Obviously, Götze being the bigger name there, but Batshuayi has been a solid goal scorer in numerous leagues throughout his entire career. So
Chelsea player.
Yeah, ex-Chelsea player, good shout. So yeah, they've got some good names, some pedigree, some guys who have played in deep into European knockout competition. So this is by no means a cakewalk. I think there's often the moniker thrown in the Bundesliga as the Farmers League, right outside of Bayern. But I do not subscribe to that take, and I think that Frankfurt will give us a good match. And not that I'm calling on any fans for doing this, right? But I really think that that Spurs have no right to be overconfident in this scenario either, right? We haven't been great this season, so a lot for us to prove going into this match against Frankfurt. Looking past Frankfurt, then, as we mentioned earlier, Spurs will take on Fulham at Craven Cottage on Sunday as we look to recover our league position. We kind of touched on it earlier. League position is probably whatever at this point. I don't think any fans are terribly invested in what happens. Obviously, we all want victories for Spurs and 3 points, right? But it's really all about Europa League. We've talked a little bit about maybe projected lineup when it comes to some guys that we prefer not to feature. But what do you anticipate happening in this match on Sunday?
Yeah, I think it'll be a pretty heavy rotation. Fullbacks, Udogi's definitely going to play. I'd lean Spence just because Porro has the Spain call-up. So maybe Udogi and Spence is what I would go with.
Yeah.
Both center backs I'm resting, to be honest.
Yeah.
Davies and Gray, I think that they can do a decent job together. Midfield's going to be interesting. Bentancur didn't play because he was suspended. I think we might see like a Basuma Bentancur double pivot, which is going to be pretty bad to watch if I'm keeping it a buck. But that's probably what we'll see. And then I think Madison at the 10 or maybe Bergvall. I don't know really what's going to go on at that position. So I guess I'll just say Madison. Yeah. He's not getting the England call-up, unfortunately. So, and then up front, that's where it gets really interesting. I think Brennan Johnson will definitely start on the right.
For sure.
And then I think Tell gets a start, whether it's on the left or right, we shall see. But I'd be down to swap the whole front three. So if Tell is starting on the left, then I'm happy to see Dane Scarlett through the middle. If Tell is starting through the middle, then I'm happy to see Mikey Moore on the left. I'd probably prefer Tell on the middle, Mikey on the left if I were picking the team. But I think Tell will definitely start. Moore, Scarlett up in the air, kind of. I don't know if they would put Odebear or Sonny out there. I probably wouldn't. But yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, and I haven't been always super happy with Ange's team selection, so he may start a bunch of guys that we would prefer not to see play in this match, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
And not that I'm trying to portray that I know more than Ange Postecoglou, but if it were me, I would go very heavily rotated in this match. I would honestly even like throw an Ola Cisse in there. If it were up to me, that will never happen, right? But
Yeah.
But I agree. I think the midfield will be Bentancur, Basuma, Madison. I think Madison's much more fresh than Bergvall at this point. And then up top, I agree. I think Tell will start. I'd put him on the left with Scarlett through the middle, but my guess would be that Tell starts at the 9, and I'm not quite sure what will happen on the left. But I agree Johnson will be on the right-hand side. I'd like to say Mikey Moore on the left, but dude hasn't played football for Spurs in quite a while at this point.
But he's been on the bench every game. It
Super
just
curious as
doesn't
to
make
why.
sense, man.
Yeah. And then across the back, I agree wholeheartedly with your 4 of Spence, Gray, Davies, and Udogie. I think that makes the most sense. No need to risk Van de Ven or Romero, who are both, again, as you mentioned, going to go play for their countries during this international break, and then Vicario and Ned. I mean, no reason for that not to happen. Unless you want to give Kinski a go. But
dude, I wouldn't really care, to be honest.
Yeah,
but I think Kinski will get a go rather soon. I guess we can just. I wanted to touch on our schedule. So we got Fulham, then we got a break. Then our first game back is Chelsea midweek. I think that's the game where you put out a strong lineup. So that's like the Thursday before our next Europa game. Mm-hmm. So you got a full week to recover. I think you put a strong lineup there, and then we lucked out. We got Southampton at the weekend. Literally rotate everyone, Kinski included. Just put him in there. Yep. We got so lucky with that. So I think you go full strength Chelsea, kind of like a trial run for what you want to run for Europa the following week. Rotate everyone against Southampton. Then we got Europa. Then we got Wolves, which is perfect again. Rotate everyone against Wolves.
Yep.
And then, boom, you got the second leg of Europa, and who gives a fuck what games after that? You can bench everyone as long as we get through. Yep. So I think our schedule landed really favorably. Southampton at home especially is crazy. Like, you can play academy players in that game. Yep. And then Wolves away is a bit tougher, but I don't think we're really going to focus on that. I think we could still get a result with a lesser squad as long as everyone stays healthy. So, yeah.
Fully agreed. Yeah, it's a good shot. Those opportunities to rotate are awesome. I mean, we've got 5 matches left if all things go according to plan that we really sink our teeth and our hearts into. Obviously, both legs against Frankfurt. If we get through that quarterfinal tie, assume it's probably Lazio. I do not see Bodo Glimt beating Lazio.
Lazio squeaked through.
Yeah, they did.
They were not good.
Yeah, but they've been good throughout the majority of the campaign in the Europa League. Not so great in Serie A. But I do think they'll get through Bodo Glimt. And then, as we've talked about, I think we're a better side than Lazio, but that away leg in Rome would be a real doozy for this young squad for sure. So, and then, potentially a final against maybe Man United, maybe Athletic Club. Probably one of those two. I would imagine. I think Rangers potentially have a shot. I mean, they're pretty steady as of late, the past 3 or 4 seasons in European competitions, but I would think that Athletic Club is the one that gets through the other side of the bracket, and just so happens finals at their stadium, right, which would be a challenge for anyone that they would come up against. But again, 5 matches that really matter left this season, and then if I had it my way, kind of like you've already alluded to, you use the Premier League to do what you need to do to prepare for those potential 5 matches that you have left. We have 2 as of now, right? And we need to put ourselves in a position to have more of them, but everything to play for in Europa League. And it just so happens that we're getting our best 11 back just in time for the business end of this competition to take shape. Thinking of schedule, thinking of potential Europa League ties. I mean, do you really feel that we have a chance of winning this competition, or is it just a pipe dream?
No, I do. I 100% do. I think we are in a really good position to advance to the semifinals, and then that's where it's going to get tough.
Yeah.
Is that the semifinals are May 1st, and May 8th. I believe we play Liverpool like 3 days before the first semifinal, April 27th. And then we have West Ham away, and then the second semifinal if we were to get there. So, yeah, I'd rather have Southampton and Wolves, to be honest. But I mean, I'm cool with tanking those games if that's what it takes to get to the final.
100%. Yeah, rotate in the league for sure.
I don't want to play United though. Like Sociedad scored a penalty first 10 minutes. I was like, thank God, like United's gonna go out. Would rather not play United, but as of right now, I think them or Bilbao is the most likely. And then again, like Bilbao is fucking hosting the final.
Yeah.
So it's just like in a final, like away. All right. So we'll see.
Their fan base is pretty wild. I mean, they really pack a mean punch in that stadium. It'd be a tough place to go play in a final. But you know, we want opportunities to win this competition. We're going to have to win big games like that. So getting way ahead of ourselves here. We got to get through Frankfurt first. Before we wrap up, let's take a second to shout out our wonderful partners, and let's talk Academy and Loan for sure. As always, brought to you by the Wits End, Cascade, and Rainier Growlers. Loan Watch, Academy Watch. What do you got for us?
Yeah, so I'm mainly going to touch on England call-ups for Academy/loan players. But first, yeah, the Academy is playing as we speak right now, and Mikey Moore's back to goal in the first half. Chang just texted our group chat. So shout out to Mikey Moore. I guess getting some minutes at the U21 level and bagging goals. But yeah, so it was an interesting bit for the Academy. Let me pull up my list really quick. As a lot of the players were left out of the England youth squads upon Tuchel's arrival. Luca Gunter, George Abbott, and Jamie Donnelly, who have been playing senior men's football week in, week out, none of them have featured in the squads for the England youth setup. And then Alfie Dorrington, Leo Black, Tyrese Hall, Callum Olasise, and Will Lancashire, who were all in them last international break, are all omitted from the squads. That could be because Dorrington and Lancashire are having less than successful loans. Tyrese Hall hasn't really featured for the first team. Same with Leo Black. Olasise featured a little bit for the first team, but he's usually been an England regular, so that is a switch. So that's interesting. But as for good news, Mikey Moore and Mikey Moore's in the U19s or U20s, I think. And then he's in the U19s. And then in the U20s, we have Ashley Phillips and Dane Scarlett. So shout out to Dane Scarlett. He got a call up. And then Ashley Phillips, who's on loan. That's fantastic. And then in the U16s or 17s, they're all in the same age group. They're all playing for our U18s. Janai Byfield, Malachi Hardy, and Luca Williams-Barnett all got called up for that age group. So a bit less Tottenham Academy in this international cycle. So I wonder why that is, but we did still get some names on the board there. And then Jamie Donnelly is considering switching his nationality to Northern Irish. So he's seriously considering that. And like, I don't know the state of that team, but he damn well might be in the first team.
I was going to say, so he'd probably get an opportunity to play in the first team for Northern Ireland, so I can't fault him for that. And yeah, it's interesting that there's been so many Spurs players omitted from national teams. Like you said, Tuchel comes in, and I'm sure
then Spence
things are being reshuffled.
Madison as well. Yeah.
Yeah. So things are definitely being reshuffled. And anytime a new manager comes in for national teams, they're going to say, if you're not playing, you're not going to get called up, right? We've heard the same thing for Pochettino from an American perspective. So, yeah, we'll
do we want to touch on that?
Touch on what?
Do you want to go touch on the Poch squad?
Yeah, let's do it for sure. I think that, it's a good shout. The Nations League roster did drop. We'll get it pulled up here. I think probably the biggest omissions off the top of my head, no Brendan Aronson. which is somewhat surprising. Yep. I think that's probably the biggest one, right? I think anyone else is probably just due to injury. But it's really Brendan Aronson that surprises me. You can assume that he gets that he makes way for Gio Reyna, who's kind of starting to come back.
Who hasn't played.
He hasn't played a lot. I think when he's gotten minutes, he's been okay. But Brendan Aronson is playing really well for Leeds in the championship right now. So I was pretty surprised by that.
Yep. And Diego Luna, Patrick Agyemang, and Brian White are all MLS products that got called up ahead of Brendan Aronson. So that's something of note. But then you got the usual suspects, Weah, Pulisic. No Flo. Is he injured?
Yeah, he's injured.
Okay, Pepe tore his ACL. So we're kind of thin up there. Josh Sargent's probably our best striker.
Yeah.
So I don't know how I feel about that, but he's been playing well for Norwich as well. Our midfield crop is looking sick, to be honest. Adams, McKennie, Tessman, Reyna, Musa, Cardoso is just disgusting. And then defensively, I don't think we've ever been the strongest. Anthony Robinson, obviously the highlight there. Chris Richards, Carter Vickers are pretty good. Shout out Carter Vickers, former Spurs player. And then Austin Trusty, he's kind of featured a bit. Somehow Tim Ream still made it in after getting cooked by Georgie Manungu repeatedly when the Sounders played them. And then Joseph Scally, who's never really become the player that we wanted him to, or at least for me, because he was super hyped up when he was younger.
Same.
And he's kind of disappointing now. But, it's the usual suspects. But like you said, no Aronson is really interesting. But I don't know. Has he... I don't know. He hasn't shown me much in the past couple years, but I was really fired up about him when he was on the come up.
Yeah, he's been good for club, but not so much for country, and so I'm not super surprised by it. I think up top in Agyemang and Brian White, that really only happens because Pepe and Balogun are both unavailable at this point. But guys finding their way into setups usually come from opportunities like that. I don't expect much of anything from Brian White, but I expect Agyemang to continue to perform. 2 goals in the January camp, which probably earned him this call up to begin with, right? But he's playing really well for Charlotte FC. Obviously now playing with Wilfred Zaha, who will continue to help him improve his game. The Agyemang thing is really interesting though, because I think 2 or 3 years ago, he was playing Division III men's college soccer, right? So he's just earned unique opportunities like injuries to Pepe and Balogun. Those types of things got him opportunities with Charlotte and MLS, and he took those and, again, took his opportunity in January with 2 goals. So I'll be interested to see what happens there. I think Diego Luna was getting called up regardless. I don't think that has anything to do with other players being available. I think Luna is somebody who Pochettino very much values, and Pochettino has said, I'm looking at MLS just as much as I'm looking at anybody in Europe, which I think is a good thing to hear if you're an American soccer fan. I know there's a lot of people who want to shit on MLS, but I think when you go into MLS with the perspective that it's not the Premier League, you can really enjoy it, right? Just change your perspective and perception of what's happening, and MLS offers a lot. The other interesting name for me on this list is Marlon Fossey, defender, typically an outside back, plays for Standard Liège, born in 98, so not young, you would say, right? At this point in time, he's 26, 27 years old, but he was born in England, so he's a dual national, and he's just somebody that I think – oh, sorry, say that again?
Fulham Academy.
Yeah, good shout. So, yeah, he's somebody that I think could offer a lot. I'm curious to know what would happen if Serginho Dest was fit and available for this call-up, right? I don't know if it's Fossey or the aforementioned name. Help me out here. No, why am I drawing a massive blank here? The right back who plays in the Bundesliga.
Oh, Scally.
Yeah, thank you. It's Joe Scally. I'd be surprised if it was Fossey or Joe Scally who would make way for Serginho Dest if he was fit. But yeah, I mean, I think my predicted 11, if I had to pick an 11 for the semifinal, I actually think Stefan's going to start in goal. and I think Matt Turner's not playing enough right now to earn the start. I could be wrong. I think Patrick Schulte is probably the third keeper. When you look at Stefan, Matt Turner, and Patrick Schulte. So I think I think Stefan might get the start here, but again, I could be wrong. I think Scally starts at right back. Obviously, Anthony Robinson's going to start at left back. I think in the middle, you probably see Chris Richards and
McKenzie.
Yeah, Mark McKenzie. Thank you. I'm just blanking on names today, but Mark McKenzie, who's now playing, I believe, for Rennes. Toulouse in France, yes, and he's done really well. So I think McKenzie and Richards are probably the center back pairing of the future for this team, and I would guess the center back pairing for the World Cup, assuming Tim Ream is probably just there, kind of hanging out and being like a mentor and a guide right throughout the World Cup if he's involved at all. Midfield's going to pick itself. Adams and McKennie and either Pulisic or Musa, and it depends on what Pochettino does tactically there, right? If he wants to play with the true 10, it's probably Pulisic, but if he's going to play a 4-3-3, I would assume it's Musa in the midfield with with McKennie and Tyler Adams. And then up top, whether it's Musa or Pulisic, they'll be paired with, I would assume, Weah, and then through the middle, it's probably going to be Josh Sargent, who as you said earlier, is playing really well for Norwich. He really hasn't taken his chances at all with the men's national team. I can't think of a time where he's performed well for the US. But
hey, Reyna, who knows? Maybe Reyna could get in there on the wing or something.
Yeah, it's potential. I mean, there's always talk that Timothy Weah can play as a 9 as well, which I wouldn't hate.
And a left back.
Yeah, right back, wherever you need him, he can play, and he's done it all at Juventus, right? Which is super impressive. And then I think when Pepe returns, Pepe's the 9. I don't see it anywhere.
Oh, you think Flo is? I think Pepe over Flo.
I think Pepe is taking his chances as of late. I mean, he's scored in
Pepe's just not that good, though. I feel like
it's interesting.
But Flo has been terrible for his club.
For sure. And Pepe's been pretty solid. He's not starting a lot, but he's scoring. And the last 3 times Pepe started for the U.S., he's bagged.
But, none of those times mattered.
Yeah.
If you look at the Copa America, Pepe was god-awful and Flo was pretty good.
Yeah, that's fair.
But also, Flo played for Arsenal, so I don't really give a fuck. You can bench Flo.
Yeah. Well, and I think in the Copa America, I think we were just so bad as a team that I really think it gave Flo the chance to just kind of highlight his individual skills, where I think Pepe was probably a bit of a product of a really poor tactical approach in that tournament. But yeah, we'll see. For those who are interested, the U.S. does play Panama on Thursday in the semifinals of the Nations League, and then the winner would play in the final the following Sunday, I believe 3 days later. It's interesting because in past, the final has been months after the semifinal, but they will play Thursday, Sunday if they get through to the final. And then on the other side of the bracket, it's Mexico and Canada. So you get through Panama, you're going to have a big rivalry match. Obviously, one of them in Mexico being a little bit bigger of a rivalry, but either way you get to the final, you're going to have a tough match against a good side who's going to be rearing and ready to go against a team in the U.S. who is kind of seen as the dominant force in the region. Now, I think both of those teams would be looking to dethrone them in the final. So it's going to be a tough challenge and a really good opportunity for Mauricio Pochettino to see what his squad is made of before the Gold Cup and then a World Cup 12 months after that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's going to do it here at Emerald and Lilywhite. This has been episode 41. Appreciate everybody who's hung around. We are the official podcast of Seattle Spurs. Please like and subscribe. It really helps us grow, not only Emerald and Lilywhite, but most importantly, Seattle Spurs. You can find me at Scott G. Bird. You can find Max at Going Limbs. You can find us at Lilywhite on all social media platforms. You can find Seattle Spurs at Seattle Spurs on all social media platforms. We do have a Gmail mailing list. If you email seattlespurs@gmail.com, you will be put on that mailing list. You will get all kinds of information around Seattle Spurs itself, watch parties, holiday parties, who will be open for matches. Out of our 3 partners, you're going to get all kinds of Spurs content too. So please make sure you sign up for the Gmail list. But again, we appreciate everybody who has been with us. Get down to one of the pubs. Again, it's Rainier Growlers and Cascades in Puyallup, and then the Wits End in Finney Ridge. Get down there, support Spurs with some fellow Seattle Spurs fans. Tip your bartender as well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.